An introduction to ÄBD-UR-RAHMÄN. Mullah ÄBD-UR-RAHMÄN is one of the most popular and probably the best known of all the Afghan poets. His effusions are of a religious or moral character, and chiefly on the subject of divine love, being, like the poetical compositions of all Muslim poets, tinged with the mysticism of Sufism, already described in the introductory remarks. But there is a fiery energy in his style and a natural simplicity which will be vainly sought for amongst the more flowery and bombastic poetry of the Persians. Rahman belonged to the Oriya Khel clan, or subdivision of the Muslim tribe, or the Mohmand tribe of the Afghans, and dwelt in the village of Hazar Khani in the Tapa or district of the Mohmands, one of the 5 divisions of the province of Peshawar. He was a man of considerable learning, but lived the life of a darwish, absorbed in religious contemplation and separated from the world, with which and with its people he held no greater intercourse than necessary and the means of subsistence demanded. He is said to have been passionately fond of hearing religious songs, accompanied by some musical instrument, which the Chasti sect of Muslimin appears to have a great partiality for. After a time when the gift of poesy was bestowed upon him, he became a strict recluse, and was generally found by his friends in tears. Indeed, he is said to have been in the habit of weeping so much as in the course of time to have produced wounds on both his cheeks. His strict retirement, however, gave opportunity to a number of envious mullahs to belie him, and they began to circulate reports to the fact that Rahman had turned atheist or heretic, since he never left his dwelling, and had even gave up worshipping at the mosque along with the congregation, a matter strictly enjoined on all Orthodox Muslimin. Well, any Muslim whatsoever, they have the Friday service, are definitely encouraged for the other 34 prayers a week and the holiday prayers and twice a year, At length, by advice and assistance of some of the priesthood, more liberal and less bigoted than his enemies, he contrived to escape from their hands by agreeing for the future to attend the place of public worship and to pray and perform his other religious duties along with the members of the congregation. He thus, whether agreeable to himself or not, was obliged in some measure to mix with the world, and this doubtless gave rise to the ode at page 29 to which the reader is referred. Rahman appears to have been in the habit of giving the copies of his poems, as he composed them, from time to time to his particular friends, which they, unknown to each other, took care to collect and preserve, for the express purpose of making a collection of them after the author's death. This they accordingly carried out. It was not until Rahman's decease that these facts became known. It appeared also that some of these pseudo-friends had, to increase the bulk of their own collections of the poet's odes, mixed up a quantity of their own trashy compositions with Rahman's, and had added, or rather forged his name to them in the last couplets. In this manner, 2 of these collections of odes were made, and were styled Rahman's first and second. Fortunately for his reputation, these forgeries were discovered in time by some of the dearest of the poet's friends, who recognized or remembered the particular poems of his composition, and they accordingly rejected the chaff, retaining the wheat only. In the shape of his diwan, or alphabetical collection of odes, like that one psalm, is it Psalm 119 that goes through the alphabet like that? I don't think it's the only one that kind of does that, but as it has come down to the present day, still considerable differences exist in many copies, some odes having a line or more or less lines, while some again contain odes that are entirely wanting in others. This caused me considerable trouble. I'm preparing several of them for insertion in my selections in the Afghan language. but it was attended with a proportionate degree of advantage, having altogether compared some 60 different copies of the poet's works of various dates, some of which were written shortly after Rahman's death, when his friends had succeeded in collecting the poems in a single volume. By some accounts, the poet would appear to have been a contemporary of the warrior poet Khushhal Khan, and has been stated that on 1 or 2 or 3 occasions they held poetical disputations together. This, however, cannot be true, for it seems that although Rahman was living toward the latter part of that brave chieftain's life, he was a mere youth, and was more correctly speaking a contemporary of Afzal Khan's, the grandson and successor of Khushhal, and the author of that rare, excellent, and extensive Afghan history entitled the Tarikh-u-Mrasa'a, and other valuable works. A proof of the incorrectness of this statement is that the tragical end of Gul Khan and Jamal Khan, which Rahman and the poet Hamid also have devoted a long poem to, took the place in the year of the Hijra, 1123, 1711, 25 years after the death of Khushhal. Another and still stronger proof against the statement of poetical disputations having taken place between them is the fact of Rahman's retired life and his humble position as compared to that of the Khushhal, the chief of a powerful tribe, and as good a poet as himself. Some descendants of Rahman on his daughter's side dwell at present in the little hamlet of Deh-el-Bahadur, the hamlet of the brave in the Muslim district, but the descendants on the side of his only son have long been extinct. The poet's tomb may be seen in the graveyard of his native village, and there's something that's called, because of a devotee Mu'in Uddin, who dwelt at a place called Chast in Arabia. This sect still exists in Afghanistan and the Punjab. And I've encountered Chishti people in the United States, and these poems you see, we have 36 of them. So the poems of ඈABD-UR-RAʿMÁN will probably be in as many programs.